Today's podcast guest is a professional spearfisherman and freediver that has spent his entire life diving the prolific waters surrounding the islands of the Azores. It's a chat filled with fishing tips and diving techniques that you're not gonna wanna miss. Welcome to the Katie C. Sawyer podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today I'm sitting down with my friend, Paulo. Paulo, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Katie, for bringing me in. I'm very happy to do this.
Awesome. You guys, Paulo is an Azorean freediver. He's part of the RIFFE International Spearfishing team, and we connected on social media on Instagram back in 2021. What drew me to Paulo's page is not only his incredible diving and adventure, but also his skill for content creation, both visually and in writing. Paulo has a unique ability to help the viewer really see and connect to his passion for the ocean and all the living things in it. Now, Paulo, before we get into your background, will you tell us a little bit about who you are today, where you're located, and what you do for a living?
Okay, so I'm located in Pico Island in the Azores archipelago. It's a group of islands from Portugal. I work in something close to the city hall, but from a really small village. I only work 9 to midday, so I have all the rest of the day for spearfishing or diving fishing, whatever. And I'm a father of 3. And yeah, it's really cool.
That's great. Okay, so you guys, if you're an English speaker that is not familiar with the language of Portuguese, he is from Pico Island, as we say in the U.S. It's Pico in Portuguese, in the Azores. And what's really cool about Pico, now correct me if I'm wrong, Paulo, please, but from what I understand is it is the highest point of the mid-Atlantic ridge, which is also geologically speaking, where the tectonic plates of North America, Eurasia, and Africa meet. It's called the Triple Junction, I think, and that might be why the Azores have such incredible marine life. And Paulo knows that all too well. But tell us about your upbringing. Paulo, you grew up in Pico, and were you always around the ocean lifestyle, like your family? Did you grow up in that, or is that something you came to later in life?
No, I grew up, I'm born in Pico, and I was raised here. There's a gap of 4 years that I lived in California, in San Diego, from 3 to 7 years. My parents moved there, trying to find a better living. Then they came back, brought me, and since then I've been here. My paradise.
Yeah.
It's one of the, yeah.
I've never been to the Azores, but man, it is on the bucket list. What I've seen and heard from there is incredible. Now, what did your father do for a living? Was he working on the ocean? And can you tell?
My father, my parents were living in Africa. They lived there for almost 30 years. I have 2 older brothers and an older sister. They are African. They were born there. But because of the war, they had to run away, lost everything. That's why they are original from here, from this town. That's why they went to the United States looking for better living. They made some money and they came back to live here. My father, when he came here, he was already retired. He retired early, so he turned to the sea. He originally was a land hunter. He was landing big game in Africa. So here he tried to find the same kind of way of living in the sea. He bought a little wood boat. My 2 older brothers, the same. They got some fins, 1 mask, and a spear gun, and they were doing spearfishing like pioneers around here at that time. So crazy stories that we're here listening about with them, just going out to the ocean with one mask. They were sharing the mask with each other and catching great fish. And I was born on those stories and seeing the fish and eating the fish they were bringing home. So, yeah, then this island, like you said, it's the highest point of Portugal, basically 2,500 meters high from sea level. And we live on a steep hill, really glued to the ocean. The mountain is pulling everyone to the ocean, and yeah, it was easy for me with lots of freedom. I would do whatever I wanted. My parents didn't know I was all day in the ocean, of course. And yeah, it was natural. It was natural.
Wow, that is incredible. I grew up my adolescence in a small town island community in the Gulf of Mexico, and it's a very different type of geology, right? So it's gradual sand beaches and just running around barefooted with the salt on my skin. It's something that obviously hooked me at a young age, and I'm following my ocean passions now, right? So hearing you say that on the island of Pico is just so cool. And I like to approach these podcasts assuming that my listeners don't know anything about the subject matter. So you're a free diver. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what it looks like? Like and then also, once you tell us that, tell us how you got into it.
Okay. Free diving is basically going in the water and diving under without no artificial breathing help, like only using your lungs to go down and knowing how to use your body to equalize and hold your breath and do it. So, and I got into it. I already said I had lots of freedom. I was all day long on the tide pools, looking at going for crabs, octopus, and all of marine life. I was involved with the ocean. I would spend all my days there. I was kind of a lonely kid because of that. Blue lips, salt skin, and all day on that. And then I started going in the water only with my eyes, trying to see what was around. And I don't remember who, but someone said, "This kid needs a mask," and someone gave me a mask.
How old were you?
And I was 8, maybe 7, 8 years old when this happened. And that mask was very strange. It was wow. I got some fishing line. I was going fishing with only a fishing line, that mask, a hook, and some bait. And without knowing, I was already doing everything that spearfishing was about. I was selecting the fish I wanted to try to catch. I was looking, I want that fish. I would put the line down and try to catch it. And at the same time, I was practicing my apnea, my breath holding skills, because I didn't have a snorkel. Sometimes looking down, sometimes breathing, and it was like that. And I remember at age 9, when I caught, I saw a really big octopus on the bottom, and I went down. I grabbed it, and I eventually caught it. It was almost 6 kilo octopus, but it grabbed me back. It grabbed me back, and on the rocks, and it was a cousin of mine that was around. He thought he's underwater too long, let me see, and he went down and grabbed me. And I wasn't scared at all. I was fighting with an octopus to bring me up. I was with all the tentacles on my body, and I still have a scar. The octopus bite me. I had a scar. I'm proud of this scar. He bite me here. And my parents just said, "Hey man, we have to give this kid a spear gun so before he gets in big trouble." And they gave me a spear gun, and then it's kind of crazy parenting, but I'm really grateful for that.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So 6 kilo octopus is over 12 pounds, which is huge.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just love that you were, how deep was it approximately? Do you know?
No, I don't know. It's really shallow, maybe 3 meters, 3 meters.
Yeah. So like 10
Down
foot,
there.
right? And you're
And,
fighting
and
an
that,
optic.
and that's when my parents discovered I knew how to swim because I never flew. I was already going down and grabbing octopus. So,
Oh my gosh, I love this. This is such a great story. And they're just like, they're not like, oh no, we need to make sure we take baby steps. They're like, let's give you a spear gun. That's all
Yeah,
she
yeah.
wrote. That's
they were like that,
amazing.
yeah.
That's so cool. So today, I mean, looking at your Instagram, it's just mind blowing, but you go down for minutes at a time, 100+ feet dives sometimes, depending on if you're reef diving or blue water diving, and sometimes it, that deep either way. Do you spearfish year round in the Azores, or what are the seasons like?
I spearfish year round, but in the winter, I would say from end of October to beginning of June, the weather is very unstable. It's difficult to go whenever you want. Yeah, but it's a long island in the carrot shape. So depending on the wind side, you always have some bay that it's okay to dive. But the water gets murky and the pelagic fish disappear completely. So I'm just shore diving for whatever fish, reef fish, parrotfish, or some kind of lobster, something like that. But yeah, on the winter I don't dive as much. Summer is when the blue water comes. It's when I start really going out almost every day. Yeah.
You're on the north side of the island, right?
Exactly. Tempe north side.
Is that the windy side?
It's the more windy side. Yes, it's more wind here than in the south.
That's cool. So
because
do you
it's a really steep mountain, steep hill. We live on the bottom, and the winds pick up. When it blows really strong here.
Do you have, like, if I remember correctly, I need to look at a map, but you have another island just north of you, right? So do you have like acceleration zones between those two islands that get real rough?
Yes. We have São Jorge right in front. It's 15 miles in front of us.
But in the summertime, it backs off quite a bit, pretty consistently?
Still a bit unpredictable, but the weather, normally some winds. It's not common to have those zero wind days. They exist, but not common.
I mean, Pico Island is, I believe it's 900 miles west of mainland Europe, which is Portugal, and then 800 miles northwest of the Canary Islands and about 1,300 miles north of Cape Verde. Just to give you guys a little bit of a insight, it's really far into the Atlantic, and you have some really incredible fish migrations that pass through there. I've seen do you hold the European record for biggest yellowfin tuna?
Not now. I was only it until 2 or 3 years ago. I didn't remember. There's a friend of mine, I've been diving with him, that caught a bigger one in Canary Island. But there's bigger ones around. I just
they're huge.
Catch one.
Yeah. How much did yours weigh?
Was 115 kilos.
Nice.
I'm not sure on count what that is.
I mean, that's you said 115.
Over 150 kilos.
Yeah. So 150 is like over 320 pounds, you guys. So that's a really big fish to be. Because you shoot them when you're blue water diving. How do you do that? Tell us a little bit about it. Like blue water diving versus reef diving. We're going to get into that conversation, but let's start with blue water, because you go down, you spear a tuna. It's not that easy. There's a lot of things that have to come into it, but then you're attached to a tuna or you're attached to a float line? How does that work? Explain to the listener the process of blue water spearfishing.
Okay, so I think it's important to say before we get to shoot the fish, there's two main ways of getting a tuna close enough to shoot. One is getting chum in the water, bringing them up, and getting the fish comfortable, going down and trying to spit a fish. Over here, that doesn't work. I don't know why. I've tried it. I attract sharks. I attract triggerfish. Never I attracted a tuna that way.
Wow.
Yeah, and the foreigners from our background and try the same. I tell them it doesn't work. It doesn't work, but they try and it doesn't work. I don't know why. And the other way is the way I do it. I go into the bait balls with all the dolphins and birds and sharks, whatever. I get in there and I go down and I try to select the fish from that confusion and I shoot it. So once we shoot it, my shot, it's connected to a bungee, a system with bungees and floats that's completely detached from me or the boat or everything. Of course, I'm chasing those floats and putting pressure, less or more pressure on them, just like someone fishing in a boat with a reel and rod, but only in the water using the pressure of the bungee and the float.
Do you?
That's how.
When you shoot a fish, say, let's talk specifically a tuna. When you shoot a tuna,
Okay.
what part of the fish do you aim for and why?
It depends. If I have time to think, normally I don't, I will aim for the head to stone it if I can. If the fish is too big and the headshot, because the headshot can be a problem if you don't switch the fish up, if you don't stone it, it's a hard place. You won't get a good holding shot or a drilling through shot, and you can lose the fish or not even spirit. So when it's a really big fish and I'm not certain I can hit that part, I will shoot for the tail, not the middle body, the tail, to take propulsion out off of that fish. That sometimes I show some videos of shooting really big tuna, those giant blue things, and I'm shooting the tail, and all the people are, oh, this is a really bad shot. That's not it. No, it's the opposite. It's the best shot you can get on a fish like that. But
That's so interesting.
Yeah, but I have to be really honest. Most of those shots are not on purpose because these fish are moving really fast. It doesn't look like it. And although they look giant, they are normally far away. They are far from me. And there's a big discount from where I'm shooting to and the shot and where the shot hits the fish. So it's a mix of luck and skill there. Yeah.
Isn't that the story of being on the ocean?
Yeah.
A mix of luck and skill. I can live by those words. So, okay, once you shoot the fish and it's going with the float line, it's completely detached from you. If you shot it in the back of the tail, you've taken its motor away from it for the most part. It still has some swim power, quite a bit. These fish are so powerful, and
Yes.
there's a lot of line in the water. There's a lot of stuff in that moment that can go wrong. Thinking both the success of landing the fish, because there's, in my opinion, nothing worse than hitting a fish and then losing it because you know that fish is harmed. You lost the fish. It's so sad. Thankfully, that doesn't happen very often to me, but when it does, it hurts. But in many ways. But you want the success of landing the fish, but also there's so many things that can go wrong in that moment. How do you mitigate and stay safe in that time and also successfully bring that fish to the surface?
Well, when you're doing this kind of spearfishing, you have to be bold. Then that brings some risks to it. Some risks that there's risks when you're doing is that your your practice makes you recognize some of the risks and try to avoid them or not. But doing this, the risks that come attached to them when you're involved, you cannot control them. You cannot expect them. You just have to embrace and accept that they can happen. That's the only way you can be somehow focused and being enjoying those moments, and that's the only way. So I try to. I don't even think, to be really honest. I'm just there. I'm just there. Nowhere else. That's what I'm doing. I'm not thinking nothing else. I normally do it right, but sometimes stuff happens, and it's my mistakes, and I learn from them. Fortunately, those mistakes haven't been yet.
Goodness.
That day.
I'm gonna knock on wood. Fortunately. No, I think that you bring up a really interesting point when you say that, because you've already told me multiple times that you don't really think when you're underwater. And I was telling someone recently about some of my experiences, and that, like, I don't actually know, like, I was telling a story about how many tuna were there. And I was like, I don't actually know how many tuna were there because I'm so dislocated from my surroundings, but also very much aware of my surroundings. It's a very weird way to describe it. Yeah. You're not actively thinking, you're just reacting, and you're acting in a way that's going to help produce the outcomes you want. And every experience is a learning experience. Now, there's something about freediving and spearfishing, and you see this in the world of hunting too. There's something about the pursuit, in my opinion, that really makes me feel alive. Do you feel that way as well? And do you feel comfortable to dive into that a little bit with me?
Yeah, of course. I feel it completely. It's what moves me. And I think it's all that preparation that we do in land, that always thinking about it and preparing, we are mentally preparing ourselves to every situation that we think that can happen. Then something happens that we didn't thought about. But that's the preparation, and it's the chase for that specific fish or that bigger fish, or that small fish but on a different area next to home or somewhere special. And then I definitely with you on that. Yeah.
It makes you feel so alive. It makes you feel so alive. I love being on the ocean. Now, I find it interesting also, you brought up the two different ways to hunt tuna, the chumming way and then the jumping in on a bait ball way. Now, the chumming way, I've done both, neither of them successfully, but the chumming way is really quite nice because you get to float at the surface, look at your chum, and if a tuna shows up, you get to dive down. It's very difficult in its own right. But when you look at the other way, where you're chasing feeding frenzies, because in these situations, depending on where you are, like I've seen it in different ways, but there's always birds diving, right? So that's a big indicator of where the tuna are, correct? Do you have any other indicators, like in Costa Rica, it's spinner dolphin. The tuna are always with the spinner dolphin. Sometimes they're with other ones, but always with the spinners. Is there, what are some of the indicators for the bait ball at the surface? What do you look for? You're on an inflatable boat. It's a nice boat, but it's an inflatable dinghy, hard bottom, I believe, right?
Yes, exactly.
And so, what are you looking for, and how do you find these frenzies, and what is that experience like? Because it is stressful. For me, it is stressful. It's like, it's really difficult to stay calm. You're chasing these bait balls down. You get in the water and you have to immediately dive because the frenzy is leaving. Like, that bait ball is moving. And do tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm in that kind of boat, like you said. And the biggest problem in those boats is too low. You don't have a high spot to see the birds on a distance. I have a really good long vision. I can see very far away. And
that's handy.
That helps a lot. And the birds I'm looking for birds. Sometimes if there's not some birds, that it's spotted dolphins here.
Okay.
They have the common. The tuna approach the common also, but normally they are with the spotted dolphins. And yeah, I go when I see the dolphins go all in the same direction in a hurry. They know. Sometimes 1 mile ahead they find a fish. Sometimes 10 miles ahead, and I go with them and sometimes I have to set like that. I just go after them and the birds. Yeah, when those big tunas are feeding on the surface, you can see them by their they flashing.
They're moving so much water. It's so cool.
Yeah.
There's very little that's cooler than that when you see tuna feeding on the surface, if anything at all. So when you're free diving, this is for the listener. When you're free diving, you've got to, we call it breathing up, where you get your breathing ready to have a breath hold. You have to be really calm. Your heart rate needs to be slow. Your body needs to be ready to use minimal amounts of oxygen as possible so that you can hold your breath as long as possible. But when you're in these high intensity situations where you're chasing the baits and the birds and the tuna, how do you remain calm before you get in the water and get ready to dive down? Because you're not getting a chance to breathe up at the surface like you do when you're like reef diving or chumming or like drifting at all. So how do you do that? How do you remain calm and stay ready for the dive?
It's not easy. Yeah, I try to, when the boat is moving, and sort of depending on the day, sometimes the water, there's waves, the boat is hitting hard. It's impossible to prepare good. I try just to get in my mind and concentrate the most I can. But it's impossible to relax on that situation. And as many times I've been there, I always get nervous seeing that I'm going to jump in something like that. It's a wonderful feeling for me. It's what I'm chasing. I'm always chasing that feeling. Of course, I'm afraid. People ask me sometimes, aren't you afraid to jump in something like that you don't know what's in the other side? Of course I'm afraid. I'm more afraid than you because I know what can be there. But it's what I like to do, and that's what I do. And I jump in and I go down right away. Of course, I don't have enough air like if I had prepared, but it's a psychological thing. I kind of do better on that situation than if I was on the shore dive 10 meters deep, relaxed on the bottom. I don't know how to explain. But it happens to me. On a dive like this, I can do, let's say, 2 minutes with no preparation, nothing. And on a dive 10 meters deep, relaxed, at 1 minute, I'm ready to come up.
Wow. That is, so you think it's psychological. You think maybe it's the fact that you're not getting into your head. You don't have a choice. You're just going to go.
Maybe, yeah. I would never be good doing competition because of that. I can do long dives that's 100 feet, 30 meters. I can do 3.5 minutes, maybe more. But on 10 meters of water, on 1 minute, maybe.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's my head. It's psychological. I'll never train. I never did free diving classes or nothing like that. It's the way I learned to dive. It's the way I relax my body. I relax better on deeper dives or on stressful situations than
control situations, or as controlled as the ocean gets.
Dive when I'm just going down to hold my breath doesn't make real much sense.
That's awesome. That is hysterical. Very cool. So, you mentioned how you know what could be on the other side of that bait ball when you jump in. What are some things that could be there? What are some potential risks in those situations?
Of course, sharks are always a risk, although they are going after the same bait the tuna are. They're not looking after a human or something like that. But yeah, accidents already happened, could happen. But sometimes big whales. I've been hit by whales more than once. I've been hit by whale sharks, the same, more than once. I think the whale sharks, they don't see good. They confuse me out of 8-ball and they just hit me. And I'm focused on a fish. I'm not looking around me. So when they hit me is when I know they're hitting. I don't see them come.
Oh my gosh.
That's some good. And of course, the other boats on the area, and once you shoot the fish, of course, the line system is a big factor that you have to try to always be aware where the system is and get away from it. Because if you are tangled on it, you won't have a chance. Once you pull your knife to cut it, you're already too deep.
Yeah. Those tuna, I mean, I've never, as I mentioned earlier, I've never shot a tuna. I've shot a handful of wahoo. And the first one, I remember I was hand lining it to the surface. It wasn't a very big one. It was probably about 40, 45 pounds. And it was big enough. And I had a wrap on it, and it swam down. And instead of letting go, I held on, just because that's my instinct. You know, when you're wiring fish on the boat, you want to hold on in those situations when you know you have it. But it dropped me like 10 foot in a split second before I had a chance to let go. I didn't get to clear my ears. It gave me a headache for a week. Like, I was just like, dang it. And thankfully, that's how I learned that lesson, because it could have been so much worse. You get tangled in these fish, it's game over. And that's a lot of line to have out. And especially when they go crazy. I saw a video on your social media, that one fish. Sorry to bring it up. I'm sure it was a hard one, but you know which one I'm talking about, where like it just went crazy at the surface, nearly hit your dive buddy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was one of those situations that it was hard to accept, because you're losing a really big fish for nothing. But with a really long dive, that was the third consecutive day going after tuna. But the fish were always too fast and hanging deep. We had catch nothing. Me and a friend of mine were diving. We had a boat man. And that day, on that rock, I intercepted this full good. I almost shot a giant yellowfin, but it turned on the last second, and I decided not to take the shot. And then I shot a slightly smaller one, a bit deeper. And it was a good shot, a good spine shot. And I really hurt that fish. But normally when you hit the fish on the spine, even if it's not a through and through shot, the slip tip will hold. There's a lot of tendons and nerves and stuff there that will hold the fish. It didn't happen that day. The slip tip just came off, and I saw that fish. I went after it to the surface, looking at it. It was so close, but I couldn't do nothing. I didn't have another gun.
No.
And then I saw it splash and go straight at my dive buddy. I was worried and happy at the same time, because I thought I was going to see him. He's going to shot the fish and he's going to secure the fish. But he didn't see it. He was looking down. The fish almost hit him, and he didn't even see it. And then the fish turned around and passed really close to me. I was prepared for it, so I wasn't really a big risk of the fish hitting me, because even if it comes at me, I was ready for it. And he didn't have any attach, no lines, nothing attached to it. But yeah, and it disappeared. It was choppy. The water was choppy that day, and I lost sight of it, and we lost the fish. And still today, this was already 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago, and till today, that fish is in my head.
Oh, I bet it is. That's crazy. Like, do you think that the slip tip malfunctioned? Is it something you could have avoided, or is it just one of those situations where there's nothing you could have done? It just happened. It's one of those
situations. I've been shooting fish with that same slip tip and that kind of shot for years and years. Yeah, it was the first time that happened. It's something, those situations that it happened sometimes.
So a slip tip is a part of, it's a tip, a spear tip that goes at the end of the shaft, And once it passes through the fish, it actually creates like a T. So it comes off the shaft. Now tell me if I'm wrong, right? It comes off the shaft. It's connected by wire and it forms a T. So it like stops on the other side of the fish, and it often creates a really, really good hold. Do you only use slip tips when blue water diving?
Yes, only slip tips, yeah. Because I'm going for really big fish, and the other option is those floppers.
Yep.
And they are strong, but they are not long enough, and it's more likely to tear the flesh of the fish up and lose the fish and the shaft, and it's not, the way I see it, not a good option. But it is the way to go.
For sure. Completely agree. So we've talked about how you had a little less than conventional way into, or maybe more conventional entry into free diving. I don't know. I'm the kind of person that worries about every single step of the way. I have to educate myself on what could happen and how to avoid those situations. So the certification course was perfect for me. I understood what was going on in my body and what I could and could not do. So very different entries into free diving, but you talked about that. You talked about how it's just always been a passion for you, and the flow of it is just so organic and natural for you. That being said, what are your safety protocols to make sure that you come back to your family every day? And like, what are the things that you take into account? I know you mentioned you had a dive buddy, for example. Like, what are some things that make sure you don't push your limits, and if you do, that you have a backup plan?
Yes, I've always understood the risks. Of course, they are easy to know what can happen. Before I had kids, I was doing a lot of crazy stuff. I was going after tuna alone in my boat. I was jumping out of the boat, leaving the boat alone. And I was being, again, success that way until today. I almost, that's the story of this song. And then I got kids. Now I think a lot more when I'm going in a hole to catch a lobster or a fish in there. I think a lot before doing that. I study the place, and if it's too dangerous, I don't do it. When I go out in the water, I have lots of rules, even for the boatman there. Because when we are going for tuna on blue water, the gun is loaded in the boat. There's no other way. You don't have time to go in the water and pull the bands, and the gun has to be loaded. And it's a danger in the boat, of course. That can go off or can just go aside, and that tip is very sharp, hurt somebody. And I have a lot of rules because of that, and there's always, I made it before we go out talking about that. I make sure everybody knows what to do and what to do once I get in the water. And that more or less that kind of stuff. And that must be.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. I mean, when you're coming up on these bait balls so quickly, like there's no other way. And what about like a dive buddy? Tell us the importance of having a dive buddy, why it's important, and why you integrate that into your plan.
It should be the only way to, like with it, a dive buddy, to do one down, one up. That's the biggest rule. When you dive, someone looking at your back, seeing all the risks, then you cannot see it. Shark approaches you in your back. You have someone that can help you with that. If you have a blackout coming up, you have someone that can grab you and help you. That's the only way. At the same time, if you don't have the right dive buddy, it could be a hazard.
Yeah.
Because if you're diving 30 meters deep and your dive buddy can look to half deep, it could be a danger for both of you. If your dive buddy doesn't know how to react, if you're on a blackout, it could be a danger for both of you. So, but the rule is to be informed and have the right training and always dive with someone
that knows what they're doing. Yeah. So how do you react in a blackout situation? What are the safety
I've,
tips that you can
I've
give us?
I've been in some, not me, but I've been in some with my dive buddy had blackouts. Grab it, pull it to the surface, pull the mast up, blow in their nose, call for them, slap on it if you need. I never had a really dangerous one. They all came to themselves on the surface before getting them to the boat. They didn't remember what happened. They were pulling me out like, "What you doing?" And just letting me go.
Interesting.
But yeah, I've been there. They that I remember a few times ago.
Wow, that's wild. So the way you know your buddy has blacked out is they'll tell me if I'm wrong, because I've just done it in training, thankfully, goodness, haven't been in that situation yet, but they'll release all their air, right? So there's a lot of air bubbles that come out, and then you know that they have blacked out, correct?
Yeah, that's one fine. Sometimes they don't blow the air out. They stay with the air. They come to the surface still with air, but they are, and they call it samba, stuck with some strange movements. Then you can see they are not feeling them, but someone watching from outside can say he's not okay. Normally the legs, they start swimming strange.
Oh, wild.
Or sometimes they get to the surface really good, everything is okay, and 1 second later they just black out.
So once it can happen after you breach the surface, you guys. You gotta and when you're diving,
sometimes.
you have to be very vigilant of yourself and your buddy. And and the boat also, you touched on the safety of the boat. You have someone on the boat. It's important not to leave the boat to go diving. What does the captain need to be doing and thinking about when they have divers in the water? I have a lot of listeners from a lot of different locations, and any helpful tidbits you can give on proper safety protocols and good ways to be successful and safe every day on the water would be super appreciated.
In spearfishing, very, very easy to lose your diver when you're in the boat. It happened to me twice. My boatman just got distracted for a minute in a dark day with clouds and choppy sea. You go down, you stay down 2-3 minutes. It's a long time. You surface, the boat has drifted somewhere off. If the boatman is not looking at the GPS where he went down, is not looking at the exact place and knowing what to do and really concentrate, it's very easy to lose you. And it can depend if the distance you are offshore, it can be very dangerous. And so it's always something that I tell my boatmen. I prepare them and tell them, please, all the time, be concentrated on me, know where I am. And I also tell them some stories that happened to me so they get a bit scared.
Yeah, because they understand the risk.
Yeah.
It's important. It's one current, one gust of wind away from losing you, and then you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So, that's terrifying, but also awesome. So, before I get into that, let's stay on this topic. What's your favorite? You mentioned the GPS on your boat. What type of tech do you use? And you also, do you dive with a dive computer? I'm assuming you dive with a watch.
Yeah, I always have a dive computer with me, yes. But it doesn't do much when I'm blue water hunting because the depth you're diving and the depth it's automatically on you. You know what the depth you are, and you have to know where. You don't have time to be looking at your watch or waiting for the beeps on your watch to be how deep you are, something like that. It's different when I'm diving near shore, when I have the bottom. I control my diving with the watch. My reading time up, and depending on the depth I dive and the time I'm spending there. On the boat, I always use the GPS to know my spots, where I am, where I want to be. depending with currents, I have to dive a lot before the spot I want to hit or something like that. And of course, the fish finder is very important in both situations on reef hunting to see the structure on the bottom and on the blue water to see it. Sometimes you don't see the school, but with the fish finder, you know the school is there a bit deeper. You just need to go deeper or attract that fish up.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference to have a Garmin in one of those. What type of dive watch do you use? And also, how do you, I still look at my watch when I'm diving. I know the point when I reach negative buoyancy, right? I know when I reach 30 foot, right? Because the ocean starts drawing you down. How do you know how deep you are without looking at your watch?
I don't. Sometimes
you just know.
You have a bungee attached to that first float, and I know that bungee is 100 feet. So depending on the traction it's giving me, I have an idea of what depth I can be. And then when you're doing this for years and years every day, the pressure, the time you're going down, the need to breathe, your feeling, all of that combined gives you an unconscious clue at what depth you are.
Right. That is so cool.
It can wrong you sometimes, of course, but mostly, most of it very well.
When do you decide when to come to the surface? What is your body doing that makes you decide it's time to go up?
When I get uncomfortable, I never let my body get to the point of contraction. I know some divers that are real good divers. They know how to pass the point of contractions. When it's very painful, it's very uncomfortable. They go past that and they stay a lot longer after that. And sometimes the second one, they stay after the second one. I never got to that because it hurts so much. It's too uncomfortable for me. I just go up. But this comes in different situations. Sometimes if you're down 1 minute and a half, 2 minutes, let's say 100 feet, and there's no fish approaching, there's nothing around, you get uncomfortable really fast. If you're seeing a big fish coming slow towards you, you'll be down there.
Suddenly a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
That's interesting you say that about contractions, because I feel like I get my first contraction like 30, 40 seconds in to my dive. And you don't?
No, I don't. I get them if I stay long enough. I get them, but a bit longer after that. And yeah, I had a really bad lung squeeze some years back, so I have to avoid them as much as I can, because those can bring you another lung squeeze again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you have to be careful. That's incredible. That's incredible that you can hold your breath that long without contractions. So reviewing your equipment before you get on the boat, how often do you do that? And what does your equipment check look like? Like, what's the importance of making sure that all your connections are right, and how often do you regulate
that? When I'm going for big fish, I always, before I go to the water, I check my shooting length, my line, the shaft, the connection, the spear gun bands, the conditions, everything. I'm really cautious with my equipment. Really cautious. Sometimes too much. I check it every time before I go. Yeah. For reef diving, not so much. I have the equipment. Even if something is not right, I can change it right there on the moment on the water, or I go in the boat and change things. Not on blue water or going for big tuna. You don't have time for that. You don't have the right stuff to be out there to be cramping stainless steel cable or something like that. It's not ideal. So I don't want to lose those big fish.
No.
So I'm really careful with my stuff. And I
Awesome.
don't, no sharp edges on the swivel. So all the swivels have to be working good. The bungee's on good condition. No.
How do you care for your equipment when you're done with the dive?
I wash it with fresh water. I rinse it through really, really good. Then I dry it on the shade. That's basically it. But
The shade. I
yeah,
think that it's really cool that you mentioned that, the shade, because is that because of the bands? Like you want, if they're in the sun too long, they'll start disintegrating?
everything but the metal, the sun will hurt bad. The wood from the guns, the bands, the lines, the sun is bad for everything. So the shade is important. Important. Okay.
Awesome. Let's dive into your reef diving. You mentioned that you're more comfortable on a 100-foot dive than a 30-foot dive, which I think is pretty cool. On your island, it's really steep seafloor, correct? Like
Yeah,
it's
correct.
pretty
Yes.
pretty quick and easy to get to that type of depth.
Yes.
And when you're diving that deep, what are you looking like? How do you know where you want to dive? For example, like, I mean, these fish, yes, they're reef, but they're just passing through. So how do you decide where you want to dive and where you're going to locate yourself?
Okay, most of these spots I know them real pretty well. I know the depths where where are the best spots to be landing or waiting. Of that one that didn't work, maybe the other one on the other side, a bit higher, a bit low, will work. Because so I know really well my spot. When I'm in a new spot, I try. And there's that's when the dive watch comes really handy to know the depth you are and the times you need to be. Yeah, but normally on these spots that I'm diving around here, around my island, I already know that pretty well.
Yeah, for sure. I would imagine so. Do you
Uh,
travel and dive at all?
Some, not as much as I wanted, but some. In the Azores, I travel a lot, of course. Every year, if someone calls me, I have a friend in San Miguel Island, almost 200 miles from here. They call me and say, the tuna are here strong. I go, like it, I get on a plane and I go straight there. I dive for a few days with them. But outside of the Azores, I've been to Mexico, I've been in California, and that was it. Basically, I went.
That's so
But,
cool.
but I have bigger plans.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You have bigger plans?
Bigger trips. I want to do longer trips.
So,
More
okay, what would
distance.
be your dream trip?
I would like to catch one of those buckley tuna everybody talks about. There's some fish out there. I want to have one. I want to catch one. So Haiti,
Oof. Drake
Madagascar,
Drake and I
Japan.
spent
Who knows?
right. Drake, the Indian Ocean. Drake and I spent our honeymoon in Zanzibar in Tanzania hunting
Oh,
dogtooth tuna.
wow.
I had a bad squeeze, spit up a bunch of blood. It was a bummer, so I had to sit it out there at the last bit. But Drake got a nice one on the
Okay.
honeymoon, which was pretty cool. So
Um,
yeah, I
my-
also would like to shoot a dogtooth. Tahiti would
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah.
As with Japan.
That
What
would-
what other what other species would you like? Is it just is dogtooth at the top of your list now?
No, not really. There's a lot of other ones like a cubeta snapper is
Mm.
like how would you say a monkey on your shoulder for
Yeah.
me because I went to Mexico with the cubeta snapper on my head and they were there really deep, 100+ deep dives, and I was seeing really big ones. And I spent the whole, I don't know, 4 or 5 days been just waiting for the right one. And I ended up shooting nothing. All that trip waiting for the right fish, and I didn't shoot nothing. So, better not to on the
I love
along the
that.
top.
You were selective, and I think that that's really great. I think it's really great.
Yeah.
Now, you're in the Azores. The water temp's quite chilly, right? Like it's pretty cold. What size wetsuit are you wearing?
On winter, I'm using a 7 mil top,
Oh my gosh.
5 mil bottom. In the summer, I'm using a 5 mil top and bottom. But I'm on the coldish side. I get cold really fast. But you can't go with a 3 mil on the night time. Very good.
So how was it like? I assume you were on the Pacific side of Mexico.
Yes,
How was it
exactly.
like over there in the quite a bit warmer water? What was it like
It
to
was
dive that?
strange. It was strange. I remember getting to the beach, everyone was preparing the boats to go out, and it was really hot. I looked in the water, I just jumped in, tried to refresh, and the water was warmer than outside. It was, there was this long, I want to refresh.
That sounds so terrible. Oh, I love that perspective because we got to the Canary Islands and it was so cold. Like my 3.5 mil was my big wetsuit and I was so cold. We had to buy a 5 mil. Couldn't move in that thing. Like I'm all about the like bikini spearfishing. Like that is what I want to do. I like the warmer water. I hold my breath a lot better in those situations too. Did you see a difference in your diving besides being warmer? Did you see a difference in your breath holds and going in? Also on that note, like in going into a new space, did you find that it was easy to acclimate or a little more difficult?
It was a little bit more difficult to me because it was the first trip outside of Portugal for me, and different waters, different species. It was a very long trip, 12 hours, one flight, 6 hours, and it was 2 days in a row just flying over. I get there, I get to sleep 5, 6 hours, then I go straight out to the water. My body was tired. I was very excited, but I couldn't do really good. On the last day, I was getting there. I was already ready to get one of those cuberas at 40 meters deep. The cuberas snappers at 40 meters deep if needed, but they didn't have it.
Oh man. But that's a really interesting point because when you're traveling to spearfish, it's really hard. Like it's really challenging on the body. It's not the same thing. Like if you guys are scuba certified, you don't have to wait a certain amount of time to go spearfishing. You don't have to wait a certain amount of time to go free diving as you do for scuba. I don't remember the science behind that, but it has to do with the fact that you're not breathing underwater. You're holding your breath. It's completely organic. And so you can technically just dive right in when you get there. And also you don't have to wait an amount of time to get back on a plane, which can be really handy, but also can be really challenging, especially with your sinuses. Do you have any issues with that? Like, do you ever get squeezes?
Yeah, sometimes I do. On the winter or on the beginning of the summer, with all the pollen of the flowers and the stuff, I get an allergy. It happens a lot with me. It wasn't the case on both the trips I did to Mexico, but yeah, it happens a lot.
How do you fight that? How do you deal with that when you want to go spearfishing and you've got some sinus issues?
I don't.
You don't go spearfishing?
Yeah. And that I try to go. I keep showering. I don't force it because it's impossible to force on you, and it's really bad for you. It can 2 or 3 days out of water can very easily become 2 or 3 weeks out of the water if you force it. So I just don't see it. I know it's something that goes quickly. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in the other day I'm already good to go. So I just
that's good. Yeah. I mean, I get a lot of squeezes, and if you don't know what that is, a squeeze is when you have like a air pocket in your sinus system or your ear system. It's all correlated and linked together. Yeah. And if you get an air pocket, then you can't equalize it, and that pocket will feel like a huge point of pressure in your face, your ear, your nose, your forehead, wherever it might be, and it can be extremely painful. And like Paulo just said, if you force it, that means that could result in you being out of the water for a long time, which is what I did on my honeymoon.
And sometimes those air pockets, they are not, they just going down. Sometimes you can actually equalize, you're going down, but the way up, you don't compensate. And when you reach the surface, something will get up on your inside ear, the tympan, I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, your inner ear.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you brought that up, that you, just because you can go down does not mean you should go down, because it could be a problem at the surface. So what you're telling me, Paulo, is that the passion for free diving and spearfishing is about listening to your body and being one with the ocean.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We didn't really talk too much about reef diving. I do want to talk about it a little bit more.
Okay.
So what are, you're blue water diving, you're chasing these bait balls, you're getting in really quickly. On your reef diving in your home port, in your home village, in your home island, you know the locations. What do you look for? Like, what are some things to look for, both in terms of safety, but also in terms of success, like where the fish are going to be? And when you go down, what might make it a promising dive? Does that make sense? Does my question make sense?
Yeah, it makes all the sense, yeah. Now, when on reef diving, it's something that I prepare a lot more on terms of where I want to be, depending on the season, the moon, because of the strength of the current, and the places I'm going. Because if I want to catch island grouper, I know I have to go somewhere where there is current, normally on very deep drops. The safety measures on there will be a lot more important. You have to have someone watching your back, because you will be diving really deep on strong current. Sometimes I just want to get some parrotfish to bring home for families, so I go shallow, 10, 12 meters of water, and to a nice relaxing with the green scenario behind me.
That's my kind of dive.
I love this kind of dive also, and like that.
So what are I feel bad, because I know my parents listen to this podcast and they're probably going to be like, oh my gosh, Katie, we don't want you to spearfish anymore. But what is the risk of it? To me, it's all about knowing what the risks are so that you can best prepare for your safety and success. So diving, deep dives in strong current, what is the risk, and how does a dive buddy really help you in those moments?
Okay. When you're diving deep, especially if you have current on these drops, there's always called down currents. When the current passes the drop, it pulls you down. It means it helps you go down, but it will be difficult to come up. You have to know that you cannot come straight up. You have to go outside of the ledge, off, so you can more easily come up. And if you don't have this knowledge, you can very easily be caught on this current, and you won't be able to come up. You also need to prepare a lot better. You have to be certain that you're really good, because before you go down, or just don't even try to do it, because to catch this fish, you have to lay down and wait for them to come in. Not like going down, collecting a fish, going straight and shooting it. And the dive buddy will help you a lot, because he will keep an eye on you. If you're in trouble getting up, he will go down and help you at mid-water or whatever. Or even sometimes, it happens a lot when I'm diving, the dive buddy will help me go down by pulling my fins down so I don't lose energy, breath hold, using my fins going down. So he will pull me to mid-water, and then I descend it out, and I have a
Wow.
better descent time. Also works that way.
So you're not wasting your buddy will pull you below the surface for the first 30 feet or something is what you're calling mid-water?
First 2-3 meters is enough. Is that first pull, it's a really big difference.
Yeah, because you're not burning. That initial energy is so significant that you're losing a lot of oxygen when you work your body that way.
Yeah.
Now, about these down pulling currents, what you're saying is the way to get out of them. So if you catch yourself in a down pulling current, is not to go up but sideways. Like how do you
off of it? Go off of the ledge that's creating the downfall. That's the way.
That's really good to know, you guys.
If you get pulled in a down current like this, the first thing you'll try to do is come up to breathe, of course, and it's impossible. It'd just be burning your energy. Sometimes the better thing to do is just let the current take you, because taking you down and further away, and start coming up wherever you can.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And what about getting caught in rip currents? I actually got caught in a pretty significant rip current between the islands of Gomera and Tenerife in the Canaries. And it was a really scary moment for me. I ended up, Drake got in the dinghy. We managed to communicate. I don't know how. He was surfing inside the break, got in the dinghy and came and got me. But if I had, in those situations, like if you're in the Gulf of Mexico and you get caught in a rip current and it's pulling you offshore, you swim perpendicular to the coastline, it'll get you out of the current, and then you just go up to the beach. But when you're on an island situation like Gomera or Catalina in California, or where you are, there's not a lot of land mass. So swimming perpendicular can be intimidating, and you might not wind up where you want to go. So how do you avoid rip currents? And also, how do you handle rip currents when you get caught in them?
When it's not very usual to get a current that strong here, but if you have a current that you cannot manage to go forward into the current, you cannot manage to swim into it, it just goes straight to land. You'll find somewhere to get on land over here. There's always somewhere you can get to land. Of course, when you're on the boat, the problem is not that big, because supposedly you have a boatman looking after you.
In theory, that should be the case.
Yeah.
But when shore diving, it can be a risk.
Oh yeah, it can. But fortunately here in Azores, you have strong currents, mainly on the tip of the island, but not that strong. Never something dangerous like that you're talking about.
That's cool. Good. So don't fight the current, swim perpendicular to the current, whether it's pulling you down or pulling you away from the coastline. That's great safety information, Paulo. What you talked about when you go down reef diving, you're not chasing a fish. You sit down at the bottom and you wait for them to come in. Is that correct?
Sometimes, depending on the species, yes, but mostly, when I'm hunting in a pinnacle reef diving, I will land on the bottom. I will use sounds with my mouth. I will use sound setting the gun or pulling the band to attract fish. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes one sound works, the other one doesn't. Sometimes you have to hide, and the fish will be curious and see what you are. Sometimes you have to show yourself for the fish. It's very different every time. But yeah, normally you have to lay down and wait and do stuff to arouse the curiosity of the fish.
Does that change? Does it vary based on species or individual fish?
It changes on individual fish, I think. On species also, but mainly one day is this way, the other day is different. The same species, the same fish will react to something today and the day after will react to something completely different.
How fascinating. So you make noises, you try and entice the fish. Is curiosity is your most common method of reef diving. Lay flat.
Yeah.
Explore what might work. Do you and your dive buddy communicate at the surface on, this is what I did and they seem to like it, but I couldn't get do y'all talk about that?
Yeah, yes, of course. We exchange the experience we had on the dive to increase the success on the next one. Another use that, of course, yeah.
And when you're diving 3 minutes, what's your breathe up time? So your time at the surface. How much time do you make sure you spend at the surface to reacclimate your body for your next breath hold?
Okay, for me, if I do a 3-minute dive at 30 meters, I will breathe up at least 2 minutes at the surface. For someone fitter than me, maybe it's less. Someone that is fit, it will be more for sure. For me, I know that this work and it's enough for me. I mean, I'm safe, and this is my biggest. If I'm in shower and I will do a 1 minute breathe up. It's my self rule is never less than 1 minute. Okay. Regardless of what depth I am, even if I'm 1 meter deep, at least 1 minute at the surface.
Yeah, that's good. Is it more about the time you spend in the water or the depth you go? I was under the impression it's more about the time that you're underneath, but does the depth play a role?
The depth only plays a role on the pressure, the stress it's given your body on the breath hold. It's going to be a 3-minute hold breath at 10 meters is different than a 3-minute breath hold at 30 minutes. It's a lot more stressful when you're deeper on your body, because it's gonna ask more from your body. So yes, I think the depth also plays a big role.
That's a really interesting point. Can you explain why it's more stressful on your body?
Because you're under a lot of weight of water. If I'm not wrong, at 30 meters, you have 4 atmospheres of water in your back. That's a lot of pressure. You can hear your heartbeat on the water. You can hear the boom, boom. If you're quiet enough, you hear it. You feel everything. You feel every single crack of movements of fish around you. That's why if you do a sound with your mouth, like a beep, 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 to attract the fish, that fish will hear it really far away.
Oh, that's so interesting. I hadn't thought about how. Yeah, I hadn't thought about how at that depth, the pressure increases the sound. I'm
not really sure about the physics on that, but it does. And it is a lot more difficult to move, of course, because you're paying
a lot of weight.
Yeah, a lot of weight, and your lungs are a lot smaller down there. So for that same amount of time down there with the smaller lungs, of course, your body has to work a lot harder to keep you that time down.
Yeah, all of your organs, you guys, all your organs get compressed and are significantly smaller when you have that much pressure. If you're listening to this podcast, y'all make sure to check it out on YouTube, because I'm going to post a lot of Paulo's videos over our content and conversation, but also like some diagrams on what we're talking about, because it's fascinating and it's also pretty crazy. People have been freediving since ancient times. I mean, some scientists hypothesize that humans actually came from the ocean originally, which is pretty crazy, but also makes sense when you start reading about it. Paulo, what do you think it is that keeps you coming back to the ocean? I mean, you've already told us it's everything about you, but I want to hear it.
I don't really know. I don't imagine not going back to the ocean. Something that I didn't start at 1 or 2 years old going to the ocean, but once I started, I felt I'm completely sure that's why I'm on this earth. That's why I was wanted to be around the ocean. It just makes sense. Yeah.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
What about your kids? Do you take your kids with you ever? Are they diving? How old are they?
They are growing up on the same place I grew up, and they have my stories. And one is 10, the other one is 7, and I have a girl 2 years old. The boys are already all day long in the water. They want to be in the water. They want to be fishing. They want to be, and they're very different from one and another. But yeah, they are already fishing. Yeah.
Does your wife like to go on the ocean?
Yeah, of course. Yes, she loves going on after fishing, but she loves ocean also. Yeah.
Oh, it's all in the family. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, Paulo, I won't take up too much more of your time. I do appreciate you sitting here with us and sharing your story. I think you're absolutely incredible. What's on your agenda for it's winter now, right? Wait, no, it's summer.
It's starting. Summer, it's just starting, yeah.
I thought for a second, it was October. I'm not sure what happened there. But so what's on your agenda for the summer? You've got some fish moving in, huh?
Yeah, they're starting to show up. I already did one try. I went to the island in front in Azores. I was seeing really big eye tuna there, 80 to 100 kilo fish. I saw them in the water more than once, really big fish, but acting really fast and too deep for me. I didn't even get close to one. But they're there. The fish are starting to appear.
That's so exciting.
Still very thin.
My last question for you is, and this might, I don't know, we'll see, but what is your most memorable moment in the ocean? What has been your most memorable moment?
Oh, well,
I know I'm blindsiding you. It's okay if you have more than one.
Oh, I have lots of them. But one that I can remember is 7 or 8 years ago. I was outside of not my village, but it's a village close 5 miles from here. I was going for tuna. The water was clear, one of those no-wind days, those rare no-wind days here. And we saw movement in the water. I stopped the boat. No, we didn't know. I thought it was a marlin or something. I stopped the boat, went in the water with flashers, everything. And stayed for a while. There was movement around. And my boatman calls me and says, "Oh, there's a pot of big whales coming right at us." And I didn't make much of it because it's common whales around here, and once they saw the boat, they just flew there. I wouldn't see them. So I didn't make much of it, stayed in the water. And some minutes later, he calls me again and says, "Look, Paulo, the whales are right on top of us." And once he told me this, I started hearing clicks. I knew right away it was sperm whales. I've always wanted to be around sperm whales, and I never could. They didn't accept me. And that day, a pot of 4 adults and a calf came to me and stayed 8 minutes around me, interacted with me. I put my gun and everything in the boat. I just took my camera, my GoPro, and it was amazing. It was fantastic. Only the mother and the calf stayed a bit further off for the first minute, and then I was nervous, of course, with giant animals around me. I didn't know what to film, what to do, what not to do. And then there's this situation, a really big one passed too close to me, and I saw the tail was going to hit me and just got in a roll and waited. And once the tail touches me, that whale stopped completely. And I relaxed. I knew right there they didn't want to hit me. And
there was no aggression. I relaxed,
all the other animals relaxed. They stopped on that characteristic perpendicular way right next to me, and the mother brought the calf in, and the calf started playing around me. I was pulling her off, not to hurt me, just with the calf, but it's giant.
Yeah. You don't really want to be hit by it
Stayed there
accidentally.
for this when they started. I stayed for some more minutes doing this, and then wow, amazing. Then they went all off peacefully. It was an amazing experience because they were the ones that choose to come to me and play around with me, and I felt really tiny and really special at the same time. It was a really memorable situation. But
What an incredible story. I love that you said you've always wanted to swim with sperm whales, but they've never accepted you, because that's exactly what it is. Like, they came up to you, they allowed you to be a part of their little pod for a little while. And I think that is incredible. Also, you touched on how once you relaxed, everyone relaxed. And I think that's really interesting. Now, I don't want to let you go just yet, because this is just too cool. When you're in the water, like, tell me a little bit about how emotions play a key role in these situations, whether you're swimming with whales or hunting big fish. Why is the way you carry yourself and your mindset important?
oh yeah, it's completely, it makes all the difference, because your mindset will affect your movement, or it will affect the way you look and the way you act, and it will affect your energy. And I know for a fact that all animals, they are a lot more susceptible to that humans are, because we lost that capability along the way. But they still feel it, and it's I don't know exactly why, but every day that I'm in the water, my state of mind is a big key of success or not for me in the water.
It makes
And
perfect
even
sense.
my intentions, they can feel. If you're good at hiding your intentions, you'll be a great hunter.
Yeah, for sure. These animals, they really sense things. They sense things about people. And you see that, on land too, like horses, dogs, deer. They all sense your intention, if you're, whether it might be good or bad, or what it might be. And if you're able to hide that in a hunt, it's super, super important. Do you, what about like making eye contact? Like, for example, when I'm wahoo diving, I make sure that I don't let that fish look me in the eye. We don't look at each other in the eye. And a lot of times that will really, I'm like acting like I'm wahoo. I'm like looking at you like you're a wahoo right now. So a lot of times that'll actually incite curiosity, and they'll get a little closer. Do you do that with your spearfishing? And if so, do you do it with every kind of fish?
It's funny because I was going to talk about wahoo, because wahoo is the best example for all. They have a really big eye, and they see really well. That's why they approach you normally in really clear water. They like to know their surroundings, and they like to feel comfortable with using their vision. And I use it a lot, especially with wahoo. Don't look directly at them. They will feel you. And don't show your intentions. Don't point your gun at them. Don't point your finger at them, because they know it. They will always approach on your fins, on your back, on your side. If you don't have a gun in your hand, they will pass really close to you. If you do, even if you're not planning, they will keep their distance. They know what's going on there. Wahoos are
so
a great
cool.
example.
I love wahoo hunting, mostly because you don't have to dive very deep. And the first one I ever shot, actually, it's interesting because I didn't have a gun in my hand. We were at the end of our drift in Gomera, and Drake was already in our inflatable dinghy, a little like 6-foot dinghy. And we both the guns were in there. I was about to get in. I'm always the first to get in and the last to get out, because I can't handle the idea of someone seeing something that I didn't see. So ice, and this nice wahoo like comes real close, and I told Drake, I'm like, good, in my snorkel, you know, like in my snorkel, I'm like, hand me the gun. I'm like waving over the top of the surface of the water, like he finally handed me the gun, and I managed to pull it off. But that fish was so curious. I just love it when that happens, when it feels like that. I mean, we sound kind of morbid saying it, because there's so much more to the ocean. It's not just about hunting these fish. It's about the experiences you get. Like you talked about the sperm whale. I also saw on your page a really cool video of you diving through a bait ball, and there was a shark in there with you, and there was this level of, do you want to just tell us about that?
Yeah, this was really far offshore. There was a bait ball. The birds were feeding also. I went to the water thinking I was going to see food or something like that. There was a single shark there feeding on that bait ball. But it was a blue shark. But he was so calm. He was really fat. He was really well fed. And I started diving, seeing some other fish would come in. And he approached me more than once on this situation that was passing through the bait ball. He was also passing through the bait ball, and we kind of met there on the outside. And I'm really careful with sharks because you never know. They are also very good on hiding their infections, and they can change really quickly. But this one, you could feel the energy. He was just there for the same reasons I was, and we were in a threat to each other, and we were feeling it both. It was one of those, it was evening, I was relaxed, and that day we were connected, we were feeling it, and both of us be in the side for
so
sure.
Cool. Yeah, you were just both hanging out in your bait ball, looking for a snack. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What types of sharks do you often see over there? And like, which ones does it change? Like, does your wariness change based on species?
Yes. We see a lot of blue sharks, a lot, really. They are opportunistic. They normally will not be a bit dangerous for you. But if you get distracted, they can nip you. There's the hammerheads. Those really big ones, that lonely one, those can be kind of dangerous, but you don't see them a lot. You only see them in real open water, and I never saw them in a bait ball or nothing like that. Close to shore, you see lots of small hammerheads, normally in groups, big groups. They will take your fish if they can from the shop, but that's it. They all are afraid of it. And then you get makos. It's quite common to see makos where in the water. When there's a mako around, I'm more careful with what I'm doing.
Do you get out of the water? Sorry, I interrupted you.
If it's a really big mako and he's acting nervous, and I will get out of the water. I won't risk it. If it's a smaller mako, smaller than me, because I think it's one of the rules on their society. With makos, if the bigger mako is the boss.
Right.
So if I'm bigger, I will take my chances and I will fight for my fish. But it's still a very smart and fast dangerous shark.
So we talked about the energy playing a key role, and you've just touched on how, like if the sharks are feeling anxious or if they're, in a frenzy, that you read that and you'll get out of the water. And if they're calm, then you'll just keep an eye on them. What are some techniques to, obviously you don't want to ever turn your back on a shark. What do you do when you're diving with a shark and you're both in the water? What are some tips to make sure that everything remains good?
There's this saying that the dangerous shark is the one that you don't see, and that's very important. You keep your eyes on it at all times. Try to know where he is, and the way he's acting. I'm not an expert, nothing like close to that with sharks, but if they're fins down and start putting their back up. That's a great sign that they are preparing for an attack or to inspect you closely at least. If they start moving erratically, fast going down and left and right and up, they are nervous. You have to be careful with that. I'm pretty sure there's another siren that I don't know because fortunately we don't have that much sharks here. I don't have to deal with a lot of sharks. But yeah, basic rules, I know them and I respect it. I try to be careful.
Good. Yeah, that makes sense. That's great.
Yeah.
Great advice. Don't turn your back on a shark, guys. So,
Never. And
what
stay
about
calm, of course. That situation don't splash around. That's very important.
Yep. Splashing is what injured bait does at the surface. So don't ever mimic something injured at the surface, and you won't hopefully enlist the curiosity of an aggressive shark. So, there are big marlin in the Azores. Do you ever see them when you're diving? And what's your experience been like there?
I never shot marlin before. I kind of want to, once at least in my lifetime, want to take one. I'm gonna do lots of different recipes I have in mind to do with a big marlin, but I never had an opportunity. I've seen quite some. I've seen in pinnacles diving for amberjack and one coming up to the flash or passing by. I've seen them just sunbathing on the surface like the sword do sometimes and jumping in, and they just went off. I never stayed close to one.
Have you ever seen them in like around bait balls? Have you seen them feeding underwater?
No, I never did.
Me neither. I want to see that so bad.
Only in video, but I never seen it.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Every time we're fishing the Baja striped marlin scene, I'm like begging the boat to let me in the water. Like, just let me jump in on that. I just want to see it so bad. So we know that you have really great content on social media. How do you get that? Like, do you have a head mount GoPro? Is that what you use?
Yes.
And like, what's your setup like? And looking at the content creation side, like, what's your process in gathering the content and then editing it and putting it out?
I use one of those smaller GoPros that they call it the Mini, that doesn't have an LCD on the back. The smaller the better. It doesn't make weight on your mast, and attaches to the mast, and it's there every time I feel like this next dive is going to be a good one. I click the button and it starts spinning and get up, turn it off. And it's like this. I get home, I just put it on the cloud. And then when I have time, the day after, a week or two or a month after, I look at the footage, I put it on my cell phone. I edit everything on my cell phone, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm a cell phone editor
really
too.
Special about it, but it's something that I like to do, but I know I'm not great at it, but I like to do it.
No, you do a great job with it. I think it's so good. I love watching your videos, the music you put to it. I think that you have a very unique perspective, and I think you do a really nice job with it. Do you just have that one GoPro going? Do you put one on your, like, does your dive buddy generally have one too?
Sometimes if there's a dive buddy around me with one, he will take some footage and he will share it with me later on. But it's big for me. Sometimes I have a friend that there's a better camera that does some footage, but not very frequently. No. Normally it's just the footage from my
GoPro.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've tried diving with a GoPro on my head. Do you have it on like a mask mount, or do you have like a head mount?
It's a mask mount. The head mount is a bit more difficult to use. You have to have it inside the hood of your wetsuit, and it can be uncomfortable, and it moves a lot. and I learned to use it on the head. You cannot do very sharp movements or quick movements, or
Yeah.
the mask will pull water in. But you get used to it.
Do you have a mask recommendation with a mount? Because I've tried it before, and the one I had it just didn't. It was so much pressure.
I just use the back mask that fits my face. I get away to put the mount there. I just reel it, get something, and I do my own thing. And it's there.
Nice.
It's not I bought the mount for the GoPro. I just do it myself.
Oh, cool. All right. That's cool. All right. So your team RIFFE, how long have you been with RIFFE, and what is your favorite blue water setup, and what's your favorite reef setup?
Oh, I've been with RIFFE already for quite some time. I cannot specifically year. I'm not really good with that year, but for at least 5 years now, maybe more. And my go-to blue water setup is the Rider, the new Riders gun they have. That gun was impressive. It's awesome with 516 mil band and 9.5 shots, mil shots. And for reef diving, I love the Eurogun with reel, the 130. It's very versatile. I can hunt on the bottom, release fish, and if there's a big lumberjack on a lot who's passing by, I can shoot it also with that gun. No problem.
Do you keep a buoy strapped to you when you're doing these reef dives in case you have a big fish come by?
I normally have a reel belt to back me up if something happens with the gun, or if the shooting line gets dropped on the band, or if the reel I have on the gun gets out of line. I have a reel belt to connect it and help me out.
Which is essentially another reel that's attached to your belt
Yep,
that
another
you clip
reel
on your gun.
Yes, exactly.
So I've had,
Yeah, I'm saying, and if that second reel gets out of line, I put a buoy on it. It happened
That's
before.
a lot of line.
Yeah, but it happened before this.
Yeah, I believe it. What do you have on the other end?
60 kilo yellowfin tuna. Yeah.
Oh my God, with your reef gun?
Yes, I was coming up and it passed right in front of me.
That's like over 120 pounds, you guys. That's that's a heck of a fish on your reel gun. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I had some experience with reel gun recently where the line on the reel, what happened is when I shot the fish, it's almost like the line got, I don't know how to describe this. It jammed, like the reel jammed, and I think it's because when it was spooled, it wasn't spooled tightly enough. Is that something you have to take into account? And what's your how do you spool your reels on your spearfishing reels?
Yeah, it's more likely that's what happened with you. When you put the line in your reel, it has to have some tension, or when it gets stretched, the line will sink into the lines and it gets stuck there, of course. So when you're reeling in, it's better to leave your shafts go down in the water, so the weight of the shaft is enough to create the tension needed to have a good real line on your reel. This makes
and that way sense. Your line's wet too, which probably plays a pretty good key role. Are you using hollow core braid?
No, I use Dyneema with the core always. And it's like a more firm line. It's better. Doesn't create as much knot. Doesn't tangle so much. It's strong and it's metal. It's better for getting on the rocks. It doesn't cut so easily.
Yeah, because one of the things you have to take into account when you're on the bottom and you're shooting a reef fish, if that reef fish goes, what it's going to want to do is it's going to want to go into a cave more often than not, especially like a grouper or a snapper. They're going to want to go into the rocks. then your shaft can get caught. It can be a sticky situation very fast. So having a line that is abrasion resistant is
Exactly.
very helpful. What are, I'm not going to take too much. Oh my gosh, we're so deep into time. I'm so sorry. Are you good?
I'm good. I have nothing to do. I'm good. I'm enjoying this conversation.
Me too. Thank you. I appreciate that. So when you do shoot a fish on the reef, what I've been told to do, like here in Texas, we're really blessed. We have the oil rigs, and that's an entire ecosystem. Now, we don't often have blue water around the like inshore rigs, but when we do, you can go get some nice snapper, cobia, or mostly snapper and cobia out there, but every now and then a wahoo. But what I was taught is to, when you shoot, to like put your hand on your reel. Hopefully your reel doesn't lock up. Put your hand on your reel and kind of swim away from the structure as fast as possible to try to guide that fish out of it. But if you've got a fish that you can't do that to, it's too big. You can't fight it. You have to let it run. What do you do in those situations? And I'm assuming that you have to eventually breathe up and then go back down and get it out of the hole, or the shaft gets caught. Like, what do you do?
We don't have the oil rigs here, but I get in situations like that on the pinnacles when I'm shooting big amberjack. And these amberjacks, they go straight down and try to wrap around the rock. And sometimes I shoot them really deep. If I'm shooting a really big amberjack and it's not a great shot, and I'm at 20, 30 meters deep, he will pull all my line before I hit the surface. So when I shoot it, if I have enough strength in air, I grab the reel and I start pulling it off of the bottom. But sometimes the fish is too big, or I'm too tired and I really have to breathe up. I just open the line and I come up, and then I try to assess the problem created there and go that. Most of the time, most likely that fish will be wrapped on the bottom, sometimes too deep for me to go there. And I spend whatever time I need pulling or dropping a weight with some wire to try to take the line out of the rock slowly.
Wow.
Sometimes I get the fish, sometimes I don't. This doesn't happen that often, but it happens, and it can happen.
What do you mean by dropping the weight down? Like, explain that a little bit.
Imagine if you think your line is fast under a tip of a rock, and it's just there. If you're pulling, there's nothing happening. But if you drop a weight with some on it attached to the line, it's going down. Once it hits that turn, it will pull the line down. And maybe it's enough for that rock to get out of the rock.
Oh, nice. So what kind of weight? Like probably on like a carabiner or something that just clips onto the line.
Everyone around here in the Azores, because of fishing, everyone has rocks with some line on the boat. Yeah, it's how to say, it's a non-expensive weight, not how you say, shown with lead. It's better than lead.
Yeah.
It's cheap.
Yeah.
It's a rock for fishing.
It's organic.
It's organic. And when people here, they have a technique fishing that we put the rock on the hook, go deep fishing. The rock takes the hook down. Once you just pull it, the rock falls off of the hook, and you have a loose hook with a bait near the bottom. So it works for that also.
That's awesome. That's cool. Okay. So in a situation where you have the amberjack y'all have there, I'm pretty sure in English it's called the lesser amberjack. It's different than the one we have in the Gulf of Mexico. The one we have in the Gulf of Mexico can get really wormy, like a lot of worms if it's too big.
Yep.
I don't really mess with that. But the ones we had in the Canaries, I never saw a really big one. I wasn't diving very deep, but definitely not 100 foot. So the ones we saw there were the lesser amberjack. Is that the same species, or do you have two species of amberjack?
We have three species. We have the lesser amberjack, we have the greater amberjack, and we have the one that you have in the Gulf of Mexico, the shorter one is the amberjack. The greater, the lesser, and I'm sorry. I don't
and
remember the name in English.
No, you're fine. I don't even know.
But it's the same species. It's the same species. But depending on where they are, because I know in Florida, for example, no one's shooting amberjacks. They have lots of worms. They are too easy to shoot. If I'm not wrong, they call them reef donkeys.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not wrong. Yeah, over here, no. They are difficult to shoot. They are really difficult to get close to the bigger ones. And there's no worm. They are the best eating fish you have around here. Oh. Everyone wants a piece of amberjack. They are fast and really, really good. So I'm really sure it depends on where they live, where they're coming from. I never saw a worm on an amberjack, on the greater amberjack that we got here. I've got 60-kilo amberjack, and they're really nice to eat.
Goodness, that is a big amberjack. That's like over a 120. And so what's your favorite way to prepare them?
Grilled is definitely my favorite way, because they are so fat. You have them on the grill and just dripping and catching fire, and it's still it's really good, really, really good. And
that's
you can
cool.
fry them. You can put them on the oven, whatever way you like. But real for me is the best way, no doubt.
What's your favorite fish to eat?
It changes every year, but I like mahi-mahi, the one we have here. Also, I tried mahi-mahi in Mexico. It's not the same as the ones we get here. Ones we get here a lot. Yeah. Our water is not as warm. It's colder. They eat more. They are fat when they are here. They are really fat. So it's really, and you can see on the picture of mahi-mahi parks in Azores and one caught in another part of the world, you will see there's no, that belly is never like this. It's always round and slower.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had some friends who same truth for this experience that are still all around the world, and they say the mahi-mahi, those are something special. So mahi-mahi is one of my favorite fish also. I love yellowfin tuna anyway. I like island vehicle. I like all the fish.
All the fish.
I really like to eat fish.
That's so cool. That's awesome. All right, Paulo, I think I need to cut time. I'm starting to feel bad for my editor. But I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today about spearfishing, about your life, and about the Azores. Can you tell our listeners where they can find your content?
Okay, so I'm in Instagram. It's _Paulo _. I'm on Facebook, just Paulo Afonso. There's a bunch of them there, but you'll see right away a guy with a big tune on it there. And I'm also on YouTube by Paulo Afonso. Yeah.
And you guys, I'll go ahead and tag those in the description below so you can find them easily. And Paulo, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to say any last words? I really
appreciate it. No, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you very much.
And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this chat, please feel free to share. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. As always, don't stop chasing your wild, and we'll be seeing you out there.